Hello guys. A bit of a different video today. We're going to be discussing how L knew Kira was Light. And now, a lot of people say, oh, it's pretty obvious, but I actually have some evidence to back up my claims here. But yeah, let's just jump straight on into it. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure to like, subscribe, and yeah, let's get into it. Now, my first line of evidence comes from a man called Ray Penber, and if you don't know, this was this, detective that was investigating Light Yagami. Yeah, and basically what makes it so obvious is there's a scene, I'll put it up on screen right now.
One of these agents, Ray Penber, exhibited unusual behavior before he died.
I understand, and I was one of the people Ray Penber was investigating.
And now if the clip didn't make it clear enough, it basically explains how Ray Penber was investigating Light at the time, and he was the only person he was investigating, so it already puts Light at kind of a high, like high level of being of suspicion, because he was the only person being investigated. So why would they want to kill Ray Penber unless they had some dirt on him? But yeah, that's where I think Elle discovered Light was Kira. But what makes me want to believe, I think Elle might have known even before that, because in this scene right here, he straight up tells Light he's Elle, and I don't know why he would do that unless he suspects he's Kira. Of course he is the chief's son, but even still, I don't think he would give that information away that easily. Way before this, he did actually place wiretaps in his house, which, if you don't know, they're basically surveillance cameras. So he did kind of have suspicion that they were in this household, and I don't actually have any footage on screen, but he did have some suspicion, because he said they were acting too ordinary, Light was acting way too ordinary. So I think then it was probably the real moment Elle found out Light was Kira. But I think he didn't 100% think he was Kira just yet. He was more like a 50-50. But yeah. Now, if you didn't know, we've also got another infamous scene right here where Elle tells Light if he was Kira, it would be sad because they were actually good friends. Now, this is Elle trying to manipulate Light into giving out that he was Kira by trying to give him some sympathy. And then this was all part of Elle's plan, because he knew Light was Kira at this point. He just wanted to get a confession out of him by trying to, poison him with friendship, which I think was a really good idea. Now, the thing about Elle's death, so right before he dies, there's a scene on the rooftop with Light, and he's basically talking to Elle, because he's, wondering why he's up there, and he says he can hear the bells ringing, which basically implies he's dying pretty soon, and I don't know how he knew this, but he knew Light was going to kill him, and it's very well done, because to the point where after he died, I had only just figured out a couple hours after he died the whole reason of it. I literally it just clicked for some reason. But yeah, I just wanted to kind of go off topic and explain Elle's death and how well done it is, and it's just the perfect conclusion to this character. But yeah, he died a bit too early in my opinion. Now, if you think about it, Light actually lost in the second episode because he got caught by Elle, because Elle was actually doing a broadcast in the Kanto region of Japan only, and he basically fell for the bait and killed the guy on screen, which was a death row inmate, which was really stupid. If he didn't do that, he probably would not have got caught by Elle at all, which really was stupid, bro. He literally took the bait like a cat. Bro, honestly, stupidest thing, but it was for the plot, so that's fair. So that's why that's another reason Elle might be suspicious, maybe because he's a student, and maybe he would have fell for that. I don't know, though. Considering he stopped World War III at such a young age, and his IQ is an impeccable 240, it does not sound far-fetched that he would know that Light is Kira. After all, he did slip up multiple times throughout the story, so it kind of just makes sense for Elle to know. He was such a smart character, and he was so mysterious. We only started knowing stuff about him after he actually died, which I think was really cool. Hello guys. Today we are going to be doing a Death Note video on what Death Note character represents each 7 deadly sins. And now, guys, I will get back to gaming soon. I just really do like talking about this topic. But without further ado, like, subscribe, and we're going to get into it right now. Now, there is a lot of evidence backing up that Light would be Pride, mainly because of his egotistical ways and how he sets himself above others. We can also see his ego because when he was killing Ray Pember's wife, I forgot her name, but when he was killing her, he literally flat out told her that he was Kira right before, just so he could get the last laugh. And I know some of you are probably like, pride and ego are different things, but they're actually very similar. You could make an argument for him also being greed, mainly because he wants to become the god of the new world and nobody else, and the way he was using Misa to get what he wanted. But I'm going to just keep him as pride, mainly because that's what he shows the most of, in my opinion, and I think I have someone else for greed, which is... Although Nier is often calm and calculating, it's mostly just a mask, and there's things you can see under it, like he represents greed in a more subtle and compelling manner, mainly because of his desire to win over the Kira case. And unlike Mello, who is driven by his need for validation, Nier's greed manifests in his desire for intellectual dominance and control over the situation. Nier's greed is also rooted by his deep hunger for recognition. He wants to be acknowledged not only for solving the Kira case, but for being the one who outsmarted Light Yagami, the self-proclaimed god of the new world. And I know all that sounds like a script and I'm faking it, because it basically was me and ChatGPT. We had some words, we had a bit of script in together, and yeah, I created like a decent, good script out of what it gave me. So so don't mind that. But that's the reason I think Nier represents greed more than all the others, because he wants validation for... No, not validation. He wants to be the one known for solving the Kira case, and that's why he wants to get Mello out of it, so he, the one and only, can do it himself. And now this one probably sounds like a no-brainer, but we got Ryuk for gluttony, simply because he likes food, and also I do have another reason as well. The second reason, he only doesn't just crave food, he also craves entertainment and excitement. That's one of the reasons he dropped the Death Note down in the human world, because he was curious and he was bored. He is also willing to cause chaos in the human world just to entertain himself, displaying an insatiable appetite for amusement regardless of the consequences. Now, I think this one suits absolutely perfect, mainly because her desire for Light, which plays into a part. She's obsessed with Light. Like, honestly, bro, it's kind of crazy. Another thing to back it up is she would also sacrifice her life for him, which is kind of crazy. But yeah, there's not much to explain with this one because it's a pretty obvious one. But yeah. Now, L was between gluttony and sloth, but I eventually gave him sloth simply because the reason, he doesn't approach sloth in the way the others do in the other sins. Because although he acts like a sloth, he isn't really. He usually uses this persona as a distraction that hides a sharp intellect and tireless work ethic, suggesting sloth may be just an act. But the actual reason we can give him sloth is because his lack of effort in things. Even though he does put a lot of effort into his things, it appears that he doesn't put a lot of effort in things. But he can also be seen as unconventional approach to work. We can also note his odd posture, and his love for junk food kind of proves the fact that he is most like sloth. I mean, you could give him gluttony, but I'm just going to give him sloth because I think it suits him a lot more than gluttony. Now, there are many different ways that Mello does represent wrath, and one of them ways is his hate towards people like Nier, for example, and that makes him want to solve the case even more, that he knows he's going against Nier on the case. He also has a lot more emotion than all the other masterminds in the show. All of them are like emotionless pretty much, like Nier and L, but Mello's different. He actually has some kind of emotion, and he's very cocky in the sense, you can see when he's like, when Light Yagami's father's like about to kill him, very cocky in the moment. Yeah, he's just a very angry guy in general, because he's all over Nier, bro. He's obsessed with like trying to be better than him, so that's why I'm giving him wrath over anything else pretty much. Now, this one's a little bit of a hit or miss, depends how you perceive it. But I literally had no other spot for envy, and I felt like I would give it to Light Yagami's dad the most. I literally forgot his name, bro. But I thought I would give it to him the most, because I think of these traits that he has. Now, I think he's very envious because he usually puts his work priorities above his family, and he also, he admires Kira in the fact that he has control over people, and he would probably wish he could have that same amount of control over the people as well at the police station. He's probably a bit jealous of Elle taking control of the situation, and feels like he wants to do more to help, and just feels like he could be a bigger part in all of it. Of course, most of this is what I would like to think, but I think he would be a worthy candidate for this. Howdy, my friends. Today is another video, and today's video we are looking at Death Note characters and their obsessions. So anyway, join the Discord in the description as well. We're trying to revive it. It's going great so far, so if you wouldn't mind joining. But anyway, now Nier's like for puzzles is kind of a tricky one to pin down where it came from, but I think I have a good estimate. I think, unlike Elle, who is more emotionally driven and instinct, I think Nier has more analytical, cold approaches to problem solving. So I think puzzles allow him to express that better. It also resonates a lot with his personality because he's very distant and he's often less emotional and finds comfort in probably order and structure, so solving puzzles. It could be a way of coping with tension, but I honestly don't know. But yeah, that's Nier. I don't fully know why he's obsessed with puzzles, but that's my best estimate, I would say. Another one that was also kind of made obvious through the show, Ryuk and apples. His obsession with apples is kind of crazy. He kind of likes them because in the Shinigami realm, they're dull and boring and they're rotten, but in the human world they're kind of crazy. But what I find even funnier is he also has symptoms if he doesn't eat them. He starts twisting and turning if he doesn't eat an apple, which I think is really cool. This one's definitely the most obvious, so there's not much explaining to it. So for my theory for Mello, the reason I think he genuinely likes chocolate is because of his human nature and how he distinguishes himself from all the different other detectives like Elle and Nia, of course. And I think the reason he likes chocolate so much is because that's a thing most humans do like, and unlike Nia, they don't have a specific reason for liking puzzles. I genuinely think bro actually just likes chocolate. Unlike the other ones, I genuinely think, but if I had to give a proper guess, it's probably something to do with his intellect. I don't know directly why the people who made the show chose it, but I think it was a good decision because a lot of us can relate to chocolate. So my conclusion is it's because he's the most human out of all the other detectives. He actually shows some genuine emotion towards other characters and stuff like that, we can see on screen right here actually. Which is actually very interesting. I don't know if the people did that on purpose, but if they did, cool detail. Now, right off the bat, there's no proper explanation to why he likes cake, but it fits his personality, very mysterious. He doesn't give it away, but what he does say is, this isn't related to why he likes cake, but, apparently he can burn calories using his brain, so that's why he eats so much of it, which, who knows, could be true, might not be true. He also does have an interest in sweets, but I think they did this to more humanize him and make him more a relatable character and add some lightness to the otherwise dark theme of Death Note, which I think that's probably the reason why they gave him cake, first of all. But it was a really good decision to give him cake, because unlike the other ones, it's a lot sweeter, a lot differenter, and yeah, I think they tried to do it to humanize him. Now, you can take this how you want, but I decided to put Misa up here because she's obsessed with light. I know it's not like the other ones where they're obsessed with things. She's actually obsessed with the person, which is light. And I think one of the reasons she is obsessed is mainly because of she found out he was Kira, and that made her love him even more. But she probably would have liked him before that anyway. She is quite psychotic in certain circumstances as well. Sometimes she will she says she would give up her life for light, which is kind of crazy, I'm not gonna lie. Yeah, but I think this would actually be her obsession over anything else. I was trying to find something that she could relate to, food, but then I thought light was probably the best decision for it. But yeah, I think this best represents her obsession the most. Light Yagami is one of the most captivating characters, not just because of his intellect or his god complex, but because he forces us to ask, what is justice? Is justice about upholding the law, or is it about rewriting it, shaping the world in your image if belief is broken? This is the philosophy of Light Yagami, and today we're doing a deep dive of the mind of Kira. But before we do jump into it, like I always ask, if you don't mind subbing, don't mind liking, and join the Discord. But yeah, that's all I have to say really. Let's get into it. When we're first introduced as Light as the protagonist, he's not a monster, he's bored and a brilliant student who believes the world is rotten. And the Death Note to him is not just a supernatural notebook, it's a symbol of opportunity for him. But early on in the series, he starts to punish criminals for their actions and believes that people who are wrong in this world shouldn't exist. And at first, this kind of seems slightly reasonable, but eventually he lets his lust for power overthrow his morality, and he kind of spirals into this dark kind of character by the end of the show. But his overall belief is that absolute power in the hands of the right person can create a perfect world. And then we have Light's counterpart, L. He's cold, calculating, but grounded in doubt. Where Light sees himself as a saviour, L views himself as a questioner. Their battle isn't just mental, it's philosophical. L believes justice must be earned, never assumed, but Light believes justice can be seized as long as you're willing to kill for it. And yet both of them blur moral lines. L uses manipulation and sacrifice, and then Light uses murder. In the end, the question isn't who's right, it's whether anyone can play God and stay human. As Kira's influence grows, Light becomes more interested in his image than the outcome. He cultivates a following, people worship him, and the validation fuels his descent. This does bring up a key philosophical question. Is Light justice altruistic, or is it narcissism masked as justice? If he truly wanted peace, why not work with the system? Why the theatrics? Why the ego? Even his most loyal followers aren't partners, they're tools. He doesn't love people, he loves being revered. One reason Light is a really compelling character though is because he's not entirely wrong. The justice system is flawed. Criminals escape punishment, the innocent suffer. Light sees this and asks, why wait? Why not act? This reflects a broader issue in philosophy. When the system fails, do we obey or replace it? Light's tragedy in his critique of valid justice, but his solution is monstrous. Also, before we do go on to the next point, I do want to say this video did take a lot of preparation. I did have to get a script for this using me and a bit of ChatGPT's help. I had to make a script for this. I had to learn what half these words mean, which was kind of difficult because half these words I hardly know what they mean because I'm a young soul, I guess. But anyway, let's move on to the next point. Even after death, Light's ideology... Alright, let's give this another attempt. Even after his death, Light's ideology survives. Some view Kira as a god, other as a terrorist. This reflects real-world debates. When is violence justified? Can morality be crowdsourced? What does it say about us that some viewers agree with Kira? The legacy of Light Yagami is a philosophical mirror, one that asks, if we had power, would we do anything differently? What happens when two of anime's smartest minds are dropped into the brutal world of Squid Game? No clues, no Death Note, just wit, strategy, and survival. This is, could L and Light survive the Squid Games? And let's break it down in this video, but before we do get into it, I do want you guys, if you don't mind, to like, subscribe, and join the Discord if you're feeling up for it. And if you like this video and we get to, let's say 30 likes, I will do a part 2 of this, them surviving Squid Games 2 and 3, with all the games there instead of these ones. But I'm not going to waste any more of your time, and let's just jump straight into it.
무궁화 꽃이 피었습니다.
Alright, so first I want to clear this out of the way. They have no prior knowledge to the games at all. Like, no hints of the games. The only knowledge they'll have of the games is when they get in there. They'll have the knowledge around them like they used in, Season 1. They saw the patterns on the walls, and they predicted the games. But I do think for Red Light, Green Light, Elle and Light would win this with ease. They would both probably figure out that people are going to be pushing each other, so they would try and hide behind people, and Light most likely would probably try and push other people. Elle probably wouldn't, but I think they would clear this easily and, get past it with, no effort whatsoever. Their composure and observation skills give them a massive edge. Neither panics. Elle calculates the doll's motion patterns, and Light stays calm and observant. There's no issue here whatsoever. I'm only giving them, that 5% that they're not getting because someone might push them. But here's where it gets interesting. The honeycomb game is all about choosing the right shape and patience. Elle might go for the triangle, the simplest. Light might try and challenge himself or use a trick like heating the needle. There is many possibilities for these characters though. Personally, what I would like to think is Elle would choose the hardest, shape, because he would think it looks cool. And then he'd probably end up licking it, if I were to be completely honest. And I think Light, he would think about it too much. And, he would try and find some trick as well. I don't think he'd heat it up, because I don't think he would have a lighter in there. But I think he would think of something, and he would definitely get out of there. But yet again, both of them will survive, and with Elle with creativity and Light with control. Tug of War is less about brains and more about physical and group strategy, but both are tacticians. Elle would be like player 1, and I reckon he would calculate timing and stance. Light would manipulate his team emotionally into trusting his leadership. I think they'd survive as long as the team listens. But I do think Elle just has the better chance of surviving, because I think he would use his tactics more than Light would. But that's not to say they wouldn't destroy this game. They would win yet again on this game. But if both of these teams go head to head, say Light and then Elle's team, if they both go head to head, I think Elle would clear. Not by much, but I think Elle's tactics would have a better affection on the group than Light's manipulation.
Sangwoo? Sangwoo, hello? I'm done with this side. Sangwoo! Sangwoo!
This is the turning point. Elle thrives in mind games, especially under pressure. He'd likely deduce his opponent's strategy and win. Light may play dirty. He could cheat, deceive, or guilt trip someone into handing over the marbles. But here's the tragedy. Light would do anything to win, and Elle would play fair. The reason it's 95% and not 100 is because on the off chance they do pick each other for the game, one of them will actually die. I think it will be Light, because I think Elle would thrive in this game a lot. I think this would be his best performing game, aside from the honeycomb game. But yeah, again, I feel like they would clear this one with relative ease, not really much struggle, I don't think, because they're all playing against people with significantly less IQ than them. Now, this game is purely luck, unless they go last. If Light goes early, he's out. But if he manipulates his way to the back of the line, he lives. Elle might try and deduce the difference in the class, like Sangwoo's opponent did. It's still a coin toss, but they both might survive depending on the order. But if they go first, they're basically cooked. And if they go last, I think they'll live. But this game's so unpredictable in the way it plays out, so there's no definitive answer on if they would survive or not. So it's kind of hard to really debunk this and see if they would survive, because there's many things they could do. Light could try and push people, Elle could do the same. There is just a lot of possibilities for this game, so I'm not going to go into detail and try and debunk it. But a question I did want to try and sort out is if they're in the middle, would they survive or not? I think they have a better chance of surviving in the middle than they do at the end, because the thing is, if they're at the end, they could run out of time from people in the way. But if they're in the middle, they could obviously just push people and get there faster. But if they're at the back, then there's not really a whole lot they can do. But either way, I could see any one of them dying in this game, more so Light, because I think if he's pushing people, people are probably going to push him too. If it's Light versus L in the final match, things get dark. No Death Note, just fists and rules. Light has more physical prowess, but L, he's unpredictable, awkward, and strategic. It could come down to who hesitates first. I honestly think it is 60-40 to Light, and I think Light would win just because, like I said earlier, his physical stats are above L significantly, and I don't really find a way L could outsmart Light in this scenario because there's not much he could use around him to his advantage. I know L is smarter, but the only thing I could think of him doing is throwing sand at Light, which probably Light would predict, or choking him out with his, obviously, jumper. But like I said earlier, it's about who inevitably cracks first, and I feel like that would probably be L. I think L would probably show his cracks first, because Light has done way more despicable things than this. He's killed millions of people in Death Note, bro. I think it's about millions, but he's killed loads, and I think that would just overwhelm L personally in the emotional stat, and I know both of them are pretty much emotionless, but I feel like Light would not care and would not hesitate. Teru Mikami, Kira's #1 fanboy, the man who made writing names look like a religious ritual, and probably the only guy in the anime who made saying delete sound like a battle cry. But jokes aside, Mikami, honestly, one of the most interesting and overlooked characters in Death Note. He wasn't just a follower, he was what Light wanted the world to be like, completely devoted, completely obedient, and completely blind. Before he even met Light, Mikami already had a god complex of his own. He was the kind of guy who saw everything as black and white. Good or evil, justice or chaos, no in between. And honestly, that came from his past, being bullied, feeling powerless, and seeing society constantly reward bad people. So when he found the Death Note, he didn't hesitate for a second. He genuinely believed he was chosen, that Kira was divine justice, and he was the hand that carried it out. And that's the scary part, because Mikami wasn't pretending. He believed every single thing he said. In all truth, he was what Light was supposed to become, a morally grey person who believed in both good and evil. When Light picked Mikami as his proxy, it was like finding the perfect soldier. This guy didn't question orders, didn't get greedy, and didn't hesitate. He followed Kira's will like it was the gospel. To Light, Mikami was ideal, but to us, he was the warning sign. He's the result of when you give blind faith to someone who doesn't deserve it. Mikami's loyalty was so absolute that it blinded him. He never once doubted himself and asked if Kira could be wrong. He was so obsessed with purity that he forgot humanity isn't meant to be pure. We're flawed and that's okay, but in Mikami's mind, flaws meant failure, and failure had to be deleted. After all his devotion, all his faith, he gets betrayed by the one person he worshipped. Light never cared for Mikami, he just used him. And the moment Mikami slips up, Light acted like he didn't even exist. You can literally see the heartbreak in his face when everything falls apart. For Mikami, it wasn't just a losing game, it was like God abandoned him. And that's really what Mikami represents. He's the idea that faith, even in something you think is good, can be dangerous when it replaces your own judgment. Mikami didn't need the Death Note to be dangerous, he just needed someone to tell him he was right. He's the perfect disciple not because he was strong or smart, but because he never stopped to think for himself. At first, Light saw Mikami as the dream disciple, someone who completely understood Kira's ideology. No questions, no hesitations. To Light, Mikami was proof that his message worked. He didn't see Mikami as a person, he saw him as validation, like finally, someone who gets it. Mikami's absolute faith fed Light's ego. It made him feel like a god, not because he was one, but because someone actually worshipped him like one. Once Light realised Mikami's loyalty was unshakable, he stopped treating him like a follower and started using him like a tool. Mikami became the perfect cover, the guy who would write names, follow orders, and never betray him. Light trusted Mikami's devotion, not his judgment. That's why he never gave Mikami real freedom. He just needed someone predictable. Mikami wasn't a partner like Misa, he wasn't a challenge like L, he was a chess piece, a bishop who moved exactly when the king commanded. At the very end, when Mikami makes one fatal mistake, using the real Death Note instead of a fake, Light's entire attitude flips. He doesn't defend him, he doesn't even hesitate, he just throws him away. That's the moment that proves it. Light never loved Kira's followers, he only loved being worshipped. And Mikami, the perfect disciple, ended up being the perfect example of what blind faith costs.
Recorded history.
Yo, what's good guys? Today we are going to be doing a breakdown on how Kira accidentally created his own downfall. And it all started with L, but before we get to that, I will ask for a like and subscribe. Don't have to, but it does help push these videos out, so it would be appreciated. But anyway, let's just jump straight into it. When Light and Misa finally take out L, you'd think that would be when Kira becomes unstoppable. That's actually the moment everything starts falling apart. L pushed Light into perfection, and once L was gone, Light became comfortable. He stopped planning for every possibility. He stopped assuming someone was smarter than him. He started acting like he'd already won, and that mindset was the beginning of the end. In classical storytelling, every tragic character has one flaw. For Light, it wasn't genius or lack of morality, or even power. His flaw was pride. He needed to be the smartest, he needed the last word, and he needed to win alone, and pride always leads to downfall, even for someone as brilliant as Light. As the show progresses, you can see Light get more and more reckless with his actions and stop caring. This is shown because of his underestimation of Nia and his overestimate his ability to control everyone else, and he makes emotional decisions, not logical ones. So by the end of the show, he doesn't really think with logic, he thinks with his heart and thinks of what, would give him more power, not what the god of the new world would actually want. Once Light started seeing himself as a god, he stopped seeing mistakes as possible, which is exactly why they became inevitable. Additionally, there's another area where Light made his bigger mistake. He chooses Teru Mikami, basically the most loyal Kira follower ever, to be his proxy, and honestly that wasn't the problem. The problem was trusting Mikami blinded. Light forgot his own rule, trust no one. Instead of keeping Mikami on a leash, he gives him full freedom to act as Kira, and because of that, Nia is able to study Mikami, predict Mikami, and eventually swap the Death Note. Mikami didn't betray Light, Light betrayed himself by assuming Mikami could never slip. Light's entire endgame plan is smart, but it only works if everything goes perfect. No backups, no second layer, and no alternate route if something goes wrong. Light went from making alright plans with 0 holes to making plans that only worked because he believed he was untouchable. In early Death Note, if there was a 1% chance of failure, Light had 5 backups. By the end, if there was a 1% chance of failure, Light just assumed he'd be fine. By the time you get to the infamous warehouse confrontation, Light isn't even fighting Nia, he's fighting his own mistakes. Every single thing that takes him down was created by Light himself. He trained Mikami to act on his own, he relied on a plan with no backup, he underestimated Nia's caution, he overestimated his own invincibility. So when the fake Death Note is revealed, Light doesn't just lose the game, he realises he was the one who set up all the pieces that allowed Nia to win. Even the smartest people can slip when emotions get involved. Light is the perfect example of this. Early in the series, he's cold and calculated, and almost machine-like in his logic, but as time goes on, you see emotions slowly creep into his decision-making. Take how he reacts to Takeda or Misa, for example. He's not just thinking strategically, he's letting fear, anger, and pride influence his moves. Sometimes he kills someone not because it's the safest strategic choice, but because he feels threatened. Light constantly underestimates the people around him. The task force might have not seemed like a serious threat individually, but he forgot one thing: people learn, adapt, and work together. Early, Light would have planned carefully around L's every move, but by the end he assumes the task force is too slow, too dumb, or too predictable to even figure him out. That arrogance makes him careless. He takes shortcuts, assumes no one will notice patterns, and leaves tiny gaps in his strategy. And those tiny gaps are what Nia exploits. It's a great reminder that even when you're the smartest person in the room, ignoring the small players can ruin your plans. Kira's downfall wasn't just genius versus genius, it was genius versus everyone else, quietly improving while he got lazy. When it comes down to it, Kira's story isn't just about being outsmarted, it's about being undone by your own choices. Pride and ego will always catch up to you no matter how smart you are. Tools and followers are powerful only if you maintain control and perspective. And human emotion will always interfere with logic, and ignoring that is fatal. Even the most brilliant plans can collapse if you forget the bigger picture and let yourself get comfortable. Light Yagami is a cautionary tale. You can be the smartest person in the room, but if you let your ego, emotion and overconfidence rule your decisions, you will fall. And sometimes you'll fall by your own hand. If you think Death Note, you probably think of Light Yagami as the first Death Note user, and yes, he is one of the first, but he's not the only one, and today we're going to be breaking down all the other ones in this video. But before we do get into it, a like and subscribe is always appreciated, and I'm not going to waste too much time on the intro, because this video will probably take a while, because there are quite a few. So, Light Yagami, although the most obvious pick, he is one of the best users because his whole goal and whole idea is to eliminate evil and make the world a better place. But in doing so, it kind of corrupts him and then he kind of becomes what he wanted to destroy. He's kind of a user that, like, without him, some of the other users wouldn't have appeared because of the ideas that he brought. Like, obviously, Mikami, for example, without Light, Mikami wouldn't exist and neither would Misa. And like Shinigami is obviously Ryuk, he's the one who gives him the notebook in the first place, but a lot of the other users also have different Shinigamis. So like many other creators who have done videos on this topic, I will be giving each Death Note user a rating out of 5. And Light, he gets a 4.5, mainly because his ideas at first are really strong, but he kind of falls to his own ego towards the end. Now, Misa Amane is another Death Note user who is active at the same time as Light, and commonly referred to as Kira 2. This is because throughout majority of the story, Light and Misa kind of share a partnership. What's different about Misa is she isn't just doing it to get rid of evil, she also does genuinely love Light. And throughout the story, we kind of see Light manipulate Misa and use that to his advantage. But unlike Light, Misa has her own Shinigami called Rem. Light also seems to use Rem to kind of get what he wants as well. And now for her overall rating, I'm going to give her a 3.5 stars, mainly because she kind of just followed what Light told her to do and didn't really have any intellect behind what she was doing. She kind of did it out of drive for her love for Light, and some of her slip-ups genuinely nearly got Light caught. But overall, she did serve some relevance to the story, so I will give her credit for that. Now, Mikami is a slightly different one because although he is like Misa in the sense he is also a second Kira, he follows orders a lot better than she does. His whole premise revolves around the idea of justice, and people who don't follow justice should be deleted. What helps Mikami's case as well is him and Light also have the same motive, so it helps Mikami perform well with the Death Note. It was also stated ever since Mikami was a child, he had a very strong sense of justice. And he kind of fulfills what Misa never could, being the perfect disciple to Light and being the second Kira. But ultimately, towards the end, like Light, he did fail because of his own ego, and then he messed up the whole plan for Light as well, which also caused Light's death. So for that, I'm going to have to give him a 4 out of 5. He is a really strong Kira, but ultimately he did mess up because of his ego as well. He also relies too heavily on Light's orders and never thinks for himself. He always, acts as that perfect disciple instead of his own individual character. Now, if many of you remember, Higuchi is a Death Note user who was given the Death Note by Light when he was getting heavily suspected by L. And now, even though his motives aren't the strongest, they're still there. He has lust for power and money, and his whole character is basically greed. And how Higuchi used it is very abstract, to say the least. He had 7 subordinates who kind of helped him choose who to kill, and the killing would affect the stock of Yotsuba. And in all fairness, in doing so, it actually raised the stock significantly, and they all had like a financial benefit. But overall, my boy's kind of a fraud. He did get caught in like a couple episodes. So overall, he's getting a 2 out of 5 stars. Now, the thing about Takeda is she performs a lot like Mikami does, in the sense that she is also one of Light's most loyalist followers as well, and was able to do things when Light couldn't at the time. She sometimes did stray away from what Light truly believed in though, because at one point in the story she was on the news and she did say that Kira will be punishing innocent people if they're lazy or unwilling to work. She was also similar to Misa in the sense where she put a lot of hope into Light and truly believed what Light was fighting for. And the fact she probably killed no one before this, and for her to just agree with Light straight up, it kind of proves her loyalty to Light. And unlike Misa, she kind of did have thinking behind what she believed in as well. But overall, she gets a 3.5. She was a good help to Light, but she just wasn't as good as Mikami. Now next we have L, and I know what you're thinking. You don't think he's a Death Note user, and yes, he hasn't used the Death Note, but he has been in possession of the Death Note, so that technically makes him a user. He also did have full intent to use it as well, so it's not like he just had it, he was planning to use it. Although he didn't use it to kill anyone, he did make direct conversation with Ryuk and learn like the abilities of it and the rules and things like that, so he was a quick learner when it came to the Death Note. But what severely limits him is the knowledge we have on if he could use it or not well. So for that, I'm going to have to give him a 1 star. He didn't do too much with it, so there's not really a lot to say on L. Now, Teru is a quite obscure character to say the least. He's not actually canon in the main story. He's actually the protagonist for the pilot of Death Note. And in this pilot, he uses it to kill a few bullies. Now, he was caught onto quite fast by the police, and they kind of knew this because of an event that happened a couple years prior, where a bunch of people died from heart attacks. He is also another Death Note user, that person, but he is a no-name character, so of course we won't include him, but he is another user. Now, Teru, obviously being 13 at the time, he couldn't handle he killed other people, so Ryuk obviously offers him something called a death eraser, which never made it into the main story, but he uses this to erase the deaths that were already done. It's found out later on another Death Note is also dropped in this pilot, and another person also has it, not just Teru. What's funny is they burn the other Death Notes apart from his, and years later they make like a parody of Death Note called Death Note in this like kind of spin-off. Now overall, I'll give him a 3 out of 10 because he was a good Death Note user, but he didn't do the most with the ability he had, and arguably he was one of the better users and used it to do like decent good, I would say. Now, C Kira, also known as Cheap Kira, is also kind of a fraud. Now, let me explain. So first off, his morals were only to kill the elderly and the sick people. Now, in doing so, he decreased the Japanese living expectancy to 6th place when it was originally 1st. So this kind of gives us an idea of how many people he probably killed, and it's probably somewhere similar to Light. But basically, his story ends because Nia kind of called him out for being a fraud, and let's just say he wrote his own name in the Death Note. He also did start killing young people who were asking for it as well. But what's different about him, he did have his own Shinigami, and instead of liking apples like Ryuk, this one liked bananas, which I thought was pretty cool. I think overall we could give him 3.5 stars. He did a good job with his book, but kind of went out like a coward, so that was kind of sad to see. But he did also help old people out in the process. Now, Minoru is the user after Cheap Kira, and on top of that, he is one of the smartest kids in Japan at that point. And he comes to a major idea, and his idea is he doesn't want to kill anyone, he just wants to sell the Death Note and make loads of money. So that's exactly what he does, and with the help of Ryuk, they end up selling the Death Note, but they do it in a smart way, where it can almost not be traced. And how they did this is the Death Note actually got sold for 10 trillion. So basically, he distributed all the money between certain people with certain criterias, so it almost got split between loads of people, and they all earned 10 million each. So it was almost impossible to find out who the real Kira was. And you know what's funny? The person who bought the Death Note was Donald Trump. The one-shot is really good, so I totally recommend reading it. It's just a lot of information to note down here. Another thing he also did is he also outsmarted Nia, which is a feat alone. So overall, I'll give him a 4 out of 5. He is a really smart user and a contender to Light Yagami as well. Now, Ray Pember was one of the investigators who was tasked in looking into Light to try and find the suspect who could be Kira. And in doing so, he was forced to write his colleagues' names inside the notebook, even though he didn't know he was actually killing them. And in doing this, he thought he could force L out of hiding and reveal his actual face. And then just after, for his name to be written in the Death Note as well, and him to be killed. And what's funny is Light promised to not hurt his wife if he did this, but he also killed his wife afterwards. Now, there's not too much to say about this user. He was pretty pointless and was kind of thrown away afterwards. He literally gained absolutely nothing from doing this, and he killed his colleagues, and he died, and his wife died, so it's a win in nobody's books. And for that, he gets a 1 star because he literally benefited nobody but Light. Now this one is another obvious one because Soichiro Yagami did actually use the notebook when trying to find out Mello's real name, and he made good use of it as well because he got the Shinigami eyes and he was able to prove what Mello's real name was. Unfortunately, his use of the notebook wasn't too long, so we don't have any long-term evidence of how he would perform. His dad was also able to give Light the kind of green flag, and he proved he was innocent because he could see the lifespan above his head. And someone with a death note, you just can't see their lifespan, so he also kind of cleared Light, which helped Light kind of move the story forward. Overall, I'll give him a 4 stars. For the time he had the death note, he did make good use of it. Even if it was limited, he still did a good job as the role of the death note user at the time. Now, there are a variety of small characters who did get the Death Note, who I'm not going to actually include in this video, mainly because they didn't have enough information on them, they either didn't have enough screen time, or they were just unnamed characters. But luckily for you, I'll put all their names up on screen of the people who did actually have the Death Note, but I'm not going to be talking about any of them individually. Now for their star rating, they unfortunately don't get one because of the variety of Death Note users there are in this bunch. There are some really good ones and some really bad ones. Mostly just randoms though. Now, as some of you may know, I do a lot of Death Note videos, and one topic I haven't particularly covered is who is actually smarter between Light and L, because it is really close and it could genuinely go to either side. But before I do get into the video, a like and subscribe is always appreciated. It's completely optional, but it does help me with these videos. But I won't waste too much time explaining the intro, and let's just get into it. Now, what goes well in L's favour, if we look at his actual stats, is he's very intelligent, but he lacks social intelligence. So he's mainly smart at, like, emotionally reading people, and I think he has that over Light, clearly. He's also a lot more abstract than Light. Like, he's a more creative thinker in certain situations and thinks kind of outside the box than Light, I would say. Like, we know L shakes Light quite a lot because when they first met, like, Light was contemplating what was going on because of how weird L was at the time and how much he didn't understand him. And L is such, like, a character that is very hard to read in, like, social situations because it's hard to know what he's actually thinking. And considering L didn't have a lot of information to go off when he was assigned to this task, he did surprisingly well. What I'll do is I'll put a list of feats up on screen right now of things that kind of buff his intelligence a bit and show what he's actually really capable of, and especially with the Kira case, how he basically had to go off nothing. I think when it comes to analysing and investigating, L is definitely the better detective in that, mainly because he's been doing it longer and because it's kind of his profession. Also, when it comes to academics, we know they're kind of similar because during the test they both got the highest scores. I think most of us can admit L kind of went out on some fraudulent activities. He did not go out in the most honourable way ever, but you know, it's all good at the end of the day. You literally had L, like, washing Light's feet. Like, the biblical references in this show are just insane, honestly. Kind of shows, like, Judas and Jesus and the betrayal and that kind of stuff. But anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. Let's just move on to Light. Now for Light, we have a lot more to go off than we do for L because obviously he's the protagonist of his own show. Now there is a lot of evidence to say he's a good creative thinker, and also, like we said with L, he's very good at academics because also he scored the highest in the group. I think Light's creative thinking though is highlighted on the Higuchi case when he actually gave the notebook to Higuchi. Even though he didn't know Higuchi was the Death Note user, he was still able to figure it out, and arguably he did a better job than L at figuring out more stuff during the case. I'm going to put a list of feats up on screen like I did with L to show what Light is actually capable of in this aspect. But if we're going to be honest, Light is mainly known for his manipulation, and that's kind of stems his intelligence, basically. He knows how to manipulate people quite well. He's done this to people like Ray Penber effortlessly, and I feel like he just does this better than L in every aspect. And that's not to downplay L's manipulation, we just didn't really get to see enough of it, and when we did, it was kind of like a plead for help, like right at the end. He was trying to manipulate Light into being his friend and things like that, and trying to make him feel guilty, but it really just did not work. In my opinion, they're two sides of the same coin. They're both just as smart as each other, but the thing is, one is good at one thing and then the other is good at something else. Like, in all fairness, Light did slip up a couple times towards the start because he kind of became arrogant towards L and then killed off Lindell Taylor, which kind of revealed his location, which was kind of a stupid move, but he didn't know any better at the time, so I'll give him that. Okay, so overall, who do I think takes it? Now, honestly, it could genuinely go either way because both of them are so good at different things, but overall, I'm going to go for L. Even though Light's more refined across the board, the thing that L does excel in is better than Light. I think what holds Light a bit is he does go off of emotion-based decisions, and unlike L, he's not as calculated and composed. And this isn't to say L also doesn't have weaknesses. One of L's weaknesses is his social skills. He's not really good socially, he's kind of the behind-the-scenes detective in most of the stuff. But in overall logic and thinking, L does take the cake and is genuinely a smarter character than Light. And even then, I think L's smarter socially because even though he doesn't have social skills, he still understands people better than Light from the outside. And on top of that, L was also able to deduce Light as a suspect early on. But genuinely, this matchup is really close. It could have went either way, but I think L takes it overall. But anyway, that does conclude the video. It was a quite simple video. I didn't really have too many ideas, so I kind of thought of a simple idea that I haven't covered before. But if you guys thought my opinion was valid and you liked the video, do make sure to give us a like, give a subscribe, and you can comment if you want. But if your opinion's different, that would be helpful. I'm trying to find out where to go with my content next because obviously I'm trying out new shows and things. I just don't know where to go in terms of content because I think I would say milked Death Note for all I can kind of get out of it, and it's been fun while I've had it. This isn't going to be my last Death Note video by any means, but I feel like I'm running out of content to do on Death Note, so I feel like I need some new ideas. But if you guys have got any, that would be really helpful to leave in the description. But yeah, anyway, if you guys did enjoy this video, make sure to like, subscribe, and yeah, I've already said all that. But have a good one, guys.